Engineer Tokulawal, thank you, my amiable boss. I appreciate your presence, sir. Thanks so much for making it up to us always. We appreciate you so much, sir. Yes, sir. Engineer Tokulawal, thank you. Okay. Boss. I appreciate your presence, sir. Thanks so much for making it up as always. We appreciate you so much, sir. We are already live on YouTube, so it's repeating itself. So I think that is fine now. So we are 22 on the call already, and I think that is fine. We can see comments where we are joining us from. Good evening, colleagues from Lagos, Nigeria, from Port Harcourt. Thanks, you're welcome. Thanks for joining us. So let's go to the program of event for today. So I have my good friend too, who will also be a co-host in case we have issues with network, is also going to pivot the affairs of the training. So please, whatever happens, network can be funny. So we have so many co-hosts here already. Let us do well and work together as a team. So today's training will be, as we said earlier, will be anchored. Okay, we have Miguel from Mexico. Wow, all the way from Mexico. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate that. I think this is the first time we'll be having a participant joining us from Mexico. We do have from Saudi Arabia, we do have from Iran, we do have from Qatar, we do have from the US, and some Western countries, also Italy. And today we are having for the first time, you deserve a round of applause. Join us from Mexico. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your presence. Safety unites us together, because when it's not safe, it is never safe. Safety first and nothing else. Let us mute, please. Yes, let us mute, please. So now, with us today is Mr. Akinwale Vincent Omoni. He is a country lead, iSafety HSC Concept Limited, an HSC professional with over 13 years working experience that cuts across the oil and gas, logistics, FMCG, that is fast-moving consumable goods, and retailing and distribution. An alumni of the Lagos State Polytechnic and the University of Lagos. He bags MBA, Master's in Business Administration from the University of East London, and a fellow of the Emergency Crisis and Risk Management Institute. I welcome on the podium, I welcome to you, facilitator for today's training, Mr. Vincent Omoni. You're welcome, sir. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Wali. Good evening, everybody. It's a privilege to be here. I'm so excited. And I must say a big thank you to everyone that has made it important to be part of this section. I must commend everyone that see the importance of actually being on this call. You know, safety has become something that is part of our lives now. In fact, safety is actually our life. You know, whether you're an HSC professional, whether you just an employee, or even the business owner, you know, the role of safety has become so important that we all need to be on that bandwagon. And I want to say thank you again to Waliu for creating this platform. You are doing a good job. So without wasting much of our time, I would like us to go into the main topic today. So like you said, Wali, you said I have 1 hour, 30 minutes, right? Okay, so let me just see my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes. Please let us mute. Okay, please let us mute. We want everyone to be muted, please, so that we can enjoy this section. Thank you.
And when we talk about hierarchy of controls, we as HSC professionals, it's something that you would have heard about, or probably something you have even worked with, you know. So I will not go into the basics of what is hierarchy of controls, when do you use hierarchy of controls, and the likes. I believe it's something that we already understand. But the aspects we're actually looking at, you know, talking about the hierarchy of controls today, is to see, you know, the management perspective around it. Yes, we will touch a bit around the basics, you know, the different controls we have, and the need to actually prioritize one, each of them, and the need to ensure that none of them is actually relegated to the background, especially when we're performing our risk assessment, or we're trying to do risk treatment, you know, in our various jobs. Okay, so that said, so this is what we actually be covering today. So we'll look at what does the book says about hierarchy of controls. You know, like I mentioned, you know, I'm very sure many of us bag different certifications when it comes to HSC. You know, and I'll be sharing a bit of my stories too. You know, how I actually got into HSC, my experience, you know, using these controls and implementation of the controls in the workplace. You know, like as mentioned by Waleem, you know, I've been by God's grace, I've been able to I've had experience working in different sectors, different FMCGs. I was able to work with 3 multinationals before I actually started my own firm. You know, so and a couple of things that I've learned, you know, in the course of my duty, that I also bring on stage for us to also take some learnings from there, as it concerns the hierarchy of controls. So looking at the hierarchy of controls, what exactly are we talking about? You know, and why should we even talk about controls? Why do we even need controls when it comes to the hazards management or risk management, you know, in the workplace? Why do we need it? You know, employees are exposed to different hazards at work. They are based on the type of operations, you know, the organization is actually into, you know, from the oil and gas sectors to the manufacturing sectors, and on and on like that. You know, so the employees are exposed to different types of hazards and at different level of risks also. You know, so it's very important that all these hazards and risks are properly controlled in the workplace. And you see, when we talk about the workplace, we see it as a place where you go in the morning, you perform your tasks, and you go back home. But if you actually take your time to check the records and see what's actually happening, and number of incidents, number of accidents, you know, that has happened across the globe, you know, when it comes to workplace, you'll be amazed to know that the workplace is actually similar, you know, to the war zone. Yes, we know there's so many wars, you know, happening around, both in different magnitude, and I'm very sure that if we are talking about war now, the one going on between Russia and the West, you know, is actually one that will come to mind. You know, and if you actually take the statistics of how many people have actually died, you know, in the world, you know, it's quite a big number, you know, and that is it, you know, in different wars that has happened in the past, you know. But all this sum together, you know, the statistics shows that the number of injuries or number of accidents, you know, that has happened at the workplace is far bigger, you know, compared, you know, to people that got injured or that have died at wars. I know this you might be wondering that how is that possible? You know, and I can tell you that some of this data that we have does not even have most of African countries, because when it comes to record keeping, it's still an aspect that we need to improve on. You know, if I ask us now that how many accidents, you know, have we had in Nigeria, you know, from the oil and gas sector this year, I'm sure we will never get the exact numbers. If I ask us now that how many accidents has actually happened, you know, in the manufacturing sector in Nigeria in year 2022, I'm very sure we'll not get the exact values, you know. So these are just estimates, you know, and for them to have been able to come up with these numbers, it shows you, you know, how dangerous the workplace has actually become. And this is actually this can be attributed to a lot of things happening in the workplace. The involvement of industrialization, you know, new machines being brought into the workplace, you know, new ideas, new ways of doing things, you know, all this actually increases the risk, you know, that we have, you know, in our different workplace. So if you actually look at what I have here, it says 2 million work deaths happen every year. You know, carnage is preventable. This is from the International Labor Organizations. And it says that one death every 15 seconds, 6,000 a day. Work kills more people than wars. And it injures and mutilates too. Almost 270 million accidents are recorded each year, of which 350,000 of them are actually fatal. You know, you can take your time and actually verify some of this data, and you'll be surprised. You know, and you know, in safety, we keep saying it, that accidents are preventable. You know, and you'll be surprised that even though we shout this, you know, in our various workplace, accidents still happens. And keep asking yourself questions that how come we're still having accidents happening, you know, in our workplaces? And some of them can actually be attributed, you know, to the level or the quality of risk assessment that is actually being carried out, you know, at our various workplaces. I'm very sure many of us remember the Bhopal disaster that killed over 2,500 people. And I think over 200,000 people were also injured in the space of very few hours. You know, if you look at what has happened then and what we have now, we see how so many industries, you know, that are not still compliant when it comes to HSE, you know, that are not implementing, you know, proper controls that prevents accidents or incidents in their workplace. I will not bore you with this. This is just to give you a background, you know, of where we are, you know, when it comes to accidents. What is happening is quite saddening when you get the numbers of accidents, number of people that have died, number of minor injuries that are not even reported. You know, it will amaze you. Now, the hierarchy of controls is a way of determining which action will best control exposures. The truth is this: as far as our industries are running, we will keep having hazards, we keep having risks that needs to be controlled. And the hierarchy of controls help us to actually get the right solution or the right controls to prevent accidents from happening in our workplaces. I'm very sure we are familiar with this pyramid. This is the hierarchy of controls pyramid, and it's an inverted pyramid. And it shows, you know, the elimination, the substitution, engineering controls. For some of us that have done NEBOSH, I'm sure you are quite familiar with this, even the ones that have not done NEBOSH. And I'm very sure for people that have been part of this training before now, there will be sections where the hierarchy of controls are actually mentioned. There's no how you talk about safety today that you will not, you know, at one point or the other, make mention of the hierarchy of controls, because it is the base, it is the basic of what we actually do. All the stories about accident prevention in the workplace are all attached, to proper application of the hierarchy of controls. And as you can see, the hierarchy of controls has 5 levels of actions to reduce or remove hazards. And it comes just the way it is, it comes from the most effective to the least effective. And we'll look at it now. We'll look at how this is being embraced in the workplace, how we as managers, as custodians of safety, as torch bearers of safety, how do we manage this in the workplace? But before I move on, I would like us to look at this pyramid. It talks about elimination. It means physically removing the hazards. Substitution, replace the hazard. Engineering controls, isolate from the hazard. Administrative controls, change the way people work. Then the last level we have there, which is the PPE. But you see that in our industries today, we actually negate the first 4. And more focus is actually placed on PPE. We also look at this and we see how best we need to manage this in the workplace. Now, what is elimination? Elimination remove the hazard at source. Simply put, this could include changing the work process to stop using a toxic chemical, heavy object, or sharp tool. It has been proven that the best way to control hazards in the workplace is to eliminate it. Yes, you can tell me this is not possible all the time. Beautiful. But elimination should be the first approach when it comes to managing hazards in the workplace. It is a preferred solution to protect workers because no exposure can occur. And there are so many ways whereby elimination, can be done. I will still ask us a couple of questions for talking about the elimination. Now we also know about the substitution. Just like the name says, is using a safer alternative to the source of the hazard. And we can go on and on. An example of this is when you use a plant-based printing ink. I don't know how many of us work with in the printing industry, or some of us who use inkjets and the likes, that do a couple of printing on nylon or packaging materials, So we have the plant-based printing inks as a substitute for the solvent-based inks. And we can mention so many examples. So I don't know, can I get other examples? What other examples, other substitutions do we know? Do we have any, can somebody tell me other examples, other substitution that you are familiar with?
So instead of using the concentrated acid in removing the waste concrete from the batching plants, you dilute the concentrated acid. You dilute it so that the concentration will be very mild while putting other controls in place.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, John. So that's a very good example. So in the course, for those that use chemicals, I think that's what
you can check your comment section. I think some people are dropping in the comment section too, sir.
Oh, okay. So I have used, thank you, inkjet to replace laser prints. Beautiful. I also have using a less hazardous materials to replace the hazardous materials. Beautiful. Use such as water-based paints. Exactly. So we can go on and on, to look at various ways that substitution can be applied. One thing we also need to be careful about when administering substitution is that the solution you are giving may not totally be free of hazards or exposed the fact that you are bringing in a new material does not necessarily mean that employees will not be exposed to a form of hazards. So it's very, very important that we also put this at the back of our mind. When considering something, it's important to compare the potential new risk. So when you're performing your risk assessment, yes, you've been able to actually substitute an hazardous substance with a less hazardous, but the hazard is still present there, and you cannot take your eyes away from it. Because sometimes when I look at when I look through risk assessment done by people, and I see that, okay, fine, you've been able to provide this as a substitute for this, but what you have provided, is not totally, yes, the risk might be low, but it is not eliminated. So your review should consider how the substitute will combine with other agents in the workplace. So it is very, very important that whenever we are providing solutions, that we actually we ensure that whatever we are doing is broad enough, that we don't leave any stones unturned. This is very, very important. Effective substitutes reduce the potential for harmful effects and do not create new risks. So you can only say this solution that I've given, which is a substitute for the one that we had earlier, is effective if it does not create an extra harm, or an unforeseen harm, to the employees or to the people that will be making use of that chemical. So it is very, very important that we don't miss this out whenever we are trying to apply substitution. So elimination and substitution can be the most difficult actions to adopt into an existing process. So when it comes to application of the hierarchy of controls, for example, an organization that has been in a system for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it might be very difficult for you to bring in an elimination or to substitute a chemical. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's the most difficult because the system is already running. The equipment is already in place. It is more if these methods are best used at a design or development stage of a work process. So if, for example, for a greenfield, whereby safety is being considered at the planning stage, elimination and substitutions fit in so well. To implement them are much, much easier, than an existing system or structure or a running plant. At development stage, elimination and substitution may be the simplest and cheapest option. Another good opportunity, however, to use elimination and substitution is when selecting new equipment or procedures. So it's very, very important that whenever we have a new equipment being introduced into the system, into an existing system, since you have not been able to be part of the initial stage, it's very, very important now that you maximize your influence on the existing one, on the new one rather. The new system that has been brought in, you try as much as possible. How do we, ensure that the hazard or the risks here are properly controlled? How do we use the elimination and substitution method in this regards? And maybe in another section, we can talk about prevention through design. For those who are into projects, this is actually one of the best ways for you to be able to control risks and hazards, because prevention through design is a beautiful field that I will even encourage some of us who are taking interest in HSC, to please try as much as possible to see how you can build a career along this path. The law of, because if you actually look at a lot of things happening around now, especially when it comes to building collapse. If you take a proper dive into it, you see that it's always from the designs. So this is a new field that we need to actually take advantage of, in this part of the world. So another aspect of our engineering of hierarchy of control is engineering controls. And we can talk on and on around engineering controls. And trust me, with my years of work, I've discovered that this is, apart from the elimination and the substitution, this is one that you can actually put in place and go home and take a nap. Because engineering controls reduce or prevent hazard from coming into contact with workers. And there are so many of them. For some of us who are actually active, who are working in industries, I'm very sure we're familiar with things like barriers, like safety interlocks and the likes. They all form part of the engineering controls. And we have many of them, And part of engineering controls tool, like I have it here, can include modifying equipment or the workspace. Yes, you cannot eliminate anymore. You cannot substitute anymore. You understand? But you can put in engineering controls that ensures that the hazards, the identified hazards and the risks are properly controlled. The most effective engineering controls, I have listed a couple here, are part of the original equipment design. Beautiful that our OEMs too, their level of passion or their level of understanding of HSA is also getting better. Most equipment that are being brought into the country now already have safety interlocks, safety devices, a safety system already inbuilt into it, which is beautiful. These are some things that we never had some years back. If you look at some of the machines that were bought like 20 years ago, even 15, 17 years ago, compared to the ones that were bought in the late 20s, maybe like 2015, 2016, we discovered that a lot of safety has actually gone into our machine designs, which is a beautiful one. So we're actually getting there. Across the globe, people are becoming more aware, of the need for engineering controls and the importance they actually have when it comes to our machines. Engineering controls help to remove or block the hazards at source. It prevents users from modifying or interfering with the control. There's a particular machine called, I don't know if we have people who work in the brewery or food and beverages. There's a machine we call the filling machine or the filler. It's actually one of the equipment that you need to be very careful with, or even those that work in the can industry. Where we have the body formers, we have the what's it called? I can't remember now. But all these equipments now, they come with safety devices that ensures that employees do not have direct contact, with these the moving parts of the machine. So they come in different forms: barriers, safety interlocks. So some come with pedals that ensures that the machine only runs, when your legs are on the pedal. Things like that. So many like that, and we can go on and on, on that. So it needs minimal user input for the controls to work, operate correctly without interfering with the work process or making the work process more difficult. And you see a picture of an example of a safety interlock there. So engineering controls can cost more, and that is why, in the course of the section, you will see why most organizations, they actually want to go for the cheapest or the most convenient for them. Engineering controls can cost more, no doubt about it, upfront than administrative controls or PPE. However, if you look at the cost over time, and the kind of level of protection, the layer of safety it provides for employees, you see that it is actually the most cost effective. So whether as business owners, whether as senior managers, whether as HSE professionals, one of the things that we need to do is to see how we exhaust our engineering controls first. And trust me, one of the ways that we can, and engineering controls are so wide. That is why it's very, I used to advise people that whenever you are putting up controls, everyone has to do with engineering, it's very, very important that you engage the shop floor guys. The shop floor guys who are working with these machines, the engineers who are working with the machines, they need to be part of whatever risk assessment that has been carried out on that machine. It goes a long way. So engineering controls can save money in other areas of the process of facility operation. This is a big win when developing a business case to management. So it's very important that we let organizations know and top management understand that, engineering controls that you actually put in, over time, they also serve as other, they also perform some other roles in the workplace for the benefit of the organization. Now, we look at administrative controls. I know that this is one that, many of us are also used to, and it comes in different forms also. And administrative controls establish work practices that reduce the duration, frequency, or intensity of exposure to hazards. And it may include work process training, ensuring that the employees are actually trained on the job they are meant to do before they actually start the job. This may come in form of induction, it may come in form of onboarding process, it may come in form of trainings, specific trainings regards the machine they will actually be working with. Job rotation, instead of by the time the exposure limit is determined, so fine, maybe an employee can only be exposed to this hazard for a period of 30 minutes. So which means that you need to have extra hands, to ensure that there's a job rotation among the employees, and you don't expose the employee to a particular hazard beyond, the limit they're actually meant to be exposed to. And rest breaks also, limiting access to hazardous areas of machinery, adjusting line speeds. I know adjusting line speed is always a very difficult one. For example, a line that is meant to produce 10,000 bottles per hour, and obviously 10,000 bottles per hour might be an unsafe speed to run that machine. Organizations want to run the machine at that speed because that maximize their profit. Forget the organizations are established to make money. The bottom line of all organization is not charity. It's not that they've decided to gather people that they can be giving out money to every month. They want to run business, they want to make money, and they want to maximize it. So they want to run the machines, and some of them are people that they've actually collected loans to fix fix those machines. They want those machines to run as fast as they can. But are we running these machines at speeds that are detrimental to the employees that are actually working with these machines? You have an idea the maximum speed or the safe working speed this machine is meant to actually run. So these are some of the details that we need to have, when administering administrative controls. PPE. Now, the last one on the pyramid is the personal protective equipment, which we call the PPE. And we all know what the PPE is. Each employee, is expected to have a PPE that they actually work with. Maybe the hard hats, maybe the goggles, maybe the ear muff, it may be the hand gloves, it may be safety boots, it may be whatever it is. So PPE are also part of the hierarchy of controls, and a robust PPE program must come first before you start deploying PPE. So I think this is one mistake that HSE professionals actually do. You are bringing out a PPE to be used by the employees, and you assume that they know everything about this PPE. Have you ever asked anybody in the workplace that why are you wearing a reflective jacket? And you'll be surprised the kind of response you will get. You hear things like safety asks us to wear it. Where are you wearing this glove? Some of them in Brooklyn, we say, them say, make we wear them. That means they ask us to actually wear it. So these are some of the responses you get. And this will always happen when the employees are not properly sensitized or properly trained, on the need or why you are providing the PPE. So it's very, very important that a PPE program, a robust one, must come first with all the details before you deploy a PPE. Don't say, is it not a safety boot? Is it not just a reflective jacket? Is it not a cut-resistant gloves? Is it not a goggle? Everybody knows goggle and you are protecting your eyes. Yes, that's the basic, but there needs to be a program around it that talks about, the suitability, how to take care of the PPE. And trust me, this will actually help a lot. Even in, we know that in this part of the world, we still have a long way to go when it comes to HSE. But in some climes, employees can actually sue an organization, even when you have provided PPE. Providing a PPE without training them on how to use the PPE, without training, establishing when the PPE needs to be replaced, and communicating to them maybe loopholes that an employee will actually capitalize on during litigation if he or she gets injured. Yes, we know in Nigeria, there's a lot of things that needs to be put in place till we get to that point. But we need to start thinking about it. Why elements of the PPE program depend on the work process and identify PPE? The program should address the workplace hazard assessment. So a detailed workplace hazard assessment must be carried out before you deploy a PPE. All safety boots are not suitable for the same type of for different jobs. You cannot use the same safety boots. The electrical guy, electrical engineer, will not be able to use the same safety boot that someone working with chemicals is using. I know mostly in organizations, they have a blanket PPE. They just say, okay, we are buying this type of safety boots. And that is what everybody from the gate to the last person at the truck loading area wears. This is not right. It's something that we need to actually improve on. So there must be a PPE program that must have all these details. Then PPE selection and use, inspection and replacement of damage. So this must be established. Are you going to, how many months is a glove meant to be used? When is it meant to be replaced? And if it gets bad before that period, what is meant to be done? So all these are meant to be well established and communicated to all employees. Don't say, okay, fine, we have given them a PPE last week, so or last month, and they're meant to do it for the next 6 months. So if it gets injured within that period of change, due to the fact that the PPE is bad, you still are still accountable. I mentioned about employee training. As simple as a goggle is, employees are required to be trained on how to wear it and documented. And it's, if possible, a test of knowledge carried out, which is also meant to be documented, you know, that they've actually gone through this training and you know, this person passed. Maybe an established pass mark of 60%, you know, has been communicated. So how many of them actually met 60%, or is it 90%, or is it 100%? You know, so each organization will be able to establish that and, you know, ensure that it is followed by all. The program monitoring for continued effectiveness. The program must be monitored. Safety monitoring is another topic on its own. You know, that's, you know, compliance is one of the most difficult jobs to do. And like I said, you know, people will do what you expect, not what you actually expect. So if you are saying, I'm giving this guy a hand gloves and I expect him to wear it, that's your expectation. And nobody goes to check if Abdullah that you are giving a hand glove is wearing it or not. He knows that the supervisor will not come and check. He knows that the line manager will not come and check. He knows that the safety guy or the HSC officer will not come and check. You may not get the right compliance that you actually need, you know, for this. And that is one of the loopholes that we have when it comes to PPE. So administrative controls and PPE require significant and ongoing efforts by workers and the supervisors, you know, because like I said, people will not do everything that you actually expect of them. They are useful when employees are in the process of implementing other controls methods from the hierarchy. Additionally, administrative controls and PPE are often applied to existing processes where hazards are not well controlled. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that as beautiful as PPE is, you know, it should never be the first that we have to consider. As simple, as easy as administrative controls are, should not be the first that we actually, they should not be our first options or second options. You know, we need to look at the first ones, first of all, the elimination, the substitution, and the engineering controls. I will explain more better, you know, on this in the course of the section. Now, the ideal implementation, just like we have the pyramid, where we have the elimination, we have the substitution, we have the engineering controls, we have the administrative controls, and we have the PPE. That is exactly the same way that the controls are meant to be administered whenever we are doing our risk treatment. Everything we do in HSC is around risk assessment, like I mentioned. A detailed risk assessment done for an organization or for a process or for a job, a detailed and robust one, will ensure that all hazards or risks are properly controlled. Everything we do, all the zero injury, zero lost time incidents are all a factor of how detailed our risk assessment is. And we can't talk about hierarchy of controls or controls if we don't even talk about risk assessment itself. So your risk assessment is very, so please, as an HSC person, your risk assessment skills must always be top-notch. Your risk assessment skills must be top-notch. You must be able to perform a detailed risk assessment. And trust me, it is evolving every time. Every time I visit an organization, you know, I see the risk matrix. You see the 6x6 matrix, beautiful, beautiful. You know, whatever suits your organization, whatever your organization has decided to adopt is beautiful, but it must ensure that it is robust enough to cover all the risks that you might be exposed to. Risk treatment, you know, so we need to understand what risk treatment is, because we cannot talk about controls and if we don't know about what risk treatment is. So risk treatment is the process of selecting and implementing of measures to manage risks identified during the risk assessment. This is very, very important. Risks are treated with controls. And it is very, very important. Please, let's take note of this. That the hierarchy of controls are followed from the most effective to the less effective. For some of us that are working for third parties, that you go to companies to actually perform a task or the other, you know, most times when I go through the risk assessment done for a particular task, you know, and I see that it is more around PPE. You know, a detailed risk assessment, by the time you are putting up your controls, you must start from how do I eliminate this hazard first. It is not jumping. So if I'm going to your risk assessment, you know, as a safety manager or as an HSC person on site, and I'm seeing that you have jumped, that there's nothing that talks about elimination or substitution, you know, or engineering controls. And all I'm seeing is that we are going to make use of our face shield. We're going to use of our welding gloves, making use of our safety harness, whatever. And I don't see engineering controls in place. Then I will actually falter such. I will actually falter such a risk as assessment. All levels of hierarchy are applicable to whatever situation. So please, it's important that, you know, we actually put this at the back, you know, of our mind. And I have it here also. So substitution, engineering administrative controls, and PP should not even come into discussion until we have exhausted the elimination. Is it possible for us not to even have this hazard at all? Have you asked yourself some standard question? Is it possible that we don't have this hazard at all? That should be the first thing that should be, you know, at the forefront of your mind as an HSE person or as an employee. Then if that is not possible, that's when we now move to, okay, fine, how do we substitute? And until all the options that we have under substitution are fully exhausted, you know, we cannot start talking about other methods. Engineering controls also. And you see, engineering controls, as beautiful as it is, you know, it requires a lot of knowledge. For example, you are trying to implement engineering control for a food manufacturing company. Yes, you might have been an HSC person for 5 years, or 10 years, or 15 years. Probably in a different sector. Probably you've been in construction. Now you are moving to manufacturing. Yeah, you may say safety is safety, beautiful. But I can tell you that there's a need for you to understand the process for you to be able to provide the right solutions. You cannot be working in a brewery and you don't understand how the water kettle works, or the brewing process, how it actually works, and you want to provide a solution, you want to provide an engineering control, it will be almost difficult. Safety has gone beyond the superficial, the surface. You know, if you really want to provide the right solutions, you know, detailed technical solutions, you need to understand how the process works. And trust me, this doesn't come so easy. a lot of reading needs to be done. I keep telling people that HSC is not meant for dollars. HSC, a dollar cannot do HSC because it involves a lot of reading, it involves a lot of thinking. So there will be a need for you to do a proper thinking around it, understanding the process itself, talking to the shop floor guys, to be able to understand the process, and that's when you can actually profile the right engineering controls, especially for a system that has been in existence, that you're not part of the planning or you're not part of the designs. Even when you're part of the planning and design, it's also important that you have equipment experts that understands, how this works. So this is one thing that we must not push aside as safety professionals. I know that we have safety professionals who are not engineers. I know we have safety professionals who study social sciences. Beautiful. That is where the extra reading needs to come in. The extra knowledge needs to come in, for you to be well equipped in providing the right solutions, especially when it comes to engineering controls. Experience also plays an important role in determining the best solutions. Like I mentioned, it's very, very important. Administration and PPE also. So it's when you have exhausted elimination, substitution, engineering controls, that we can start thinking of administrative and PPE. So I will not talk too much about administration and PPE. So applying the control systematically is not one man's job. The fact that you are the HSC manager of the facility, or the fact that you are the HSC custodian of the facility, does not mean that risk treatment or determination of controls has to be solely done by you. In fact, it's always very important that the guys who live and work with these machines, are consulted whenever an assessment or an engineering control is being in determining the right engineering controls for a particular machine, in combination to your own knowledge also. I call it calling the village. For example, there's this adage in Yoruba that talks about, when you have when you kill an elephant, it says when a small child kills a rat, it can hit it all alone. But when you kill an elephant, you have to call the whole village. So whenever you want to determine the kind of controls that is adequate for a particular process, it's important that you call the entire village. Call the people. That's why we have the safety committee, we have the safety network, the machine, the area owners. Also, they are all meant to be part of these solutions. Get knowledge from different sources, and there are so many places to get knowledge from. I'm so happy that whenever I go online now, in my free time, and I see the weight of information available for HSC personnel, I'm glad. It gladdens my heart, because some years back this was not the case. Some years back, you have to either buy some books, or you talk to somebody who's already practicing HSC for 15, 20 years and is practicing in US or Australia before you get it. But now there's so much information, that you can actually tap into. So we as HSC professionals, we cannot shy away from this. Now, what is the industry reality? We can talk about elimination, talk about substitution, engineering controls, but I can keep saying, okay, PPE should be the last result. But what's actually happening in the industries? In my years working with different organizations, I can tell you for free that most organizations will rather have the minimum standard and keep business running than spend excessively on HSC. Yes, apart from the oil and gas You know, who are the main guys, who are the main people that are actually doing so well around HSC, and of course followed by the oil servicing firms, the Schlumberger of this world and the likes. They'll come to the manufacturing sectors, because now talking about the Nestle of this world, Unilever of this world, the breweries and co. You know, they will start talking about maybe the logistics and distribution sector and the retail sector too. You know, they're actually at the lower end. You know, so most organizations will rather just give them PPE and let the job keep going on. So PPE is no longer the last line of defense. Sometimes it's the first line of defense in most organizations. Organizations will rather buy a 7,000 or 10,000 safety boot for the guys and push them to work than install what's called a system that ensures that the floor does not get wet anymore. For example, for a bottle line, there's a risk of fall, slip and fall. You know, organizations will rather give employees safety boots and you tell them to install drip trays, you know, across the entire process line. They tell you that cost is too much, you know. So it is quite difficult, you know, to implement this. That is exactly what we are facing in organizations. Some employers and business owners are concerned about the bottom line, the profit that organizations will make, which is beautiful because that is where we are also paid from. You know, they just want to run the minimum standard and cost and ensure the business continues. But so what do we do as HSC professionals? How do we address this? I will also mention that in the course of this training. PPE might seem to be less expensive. You know, that's where it is very, very important that as an HSC person, you know your onions, you know it properly, and you'll be able to actually talk, you know, and defend your ideas. You know, as PPE, as cost, as less expensive as they may be, you know, they can actually be costly over time. And this is one thing that needs to be mentioned to business owners and to management at every opportunity. Yes, PPEs are good, but it must not be embraced at the expense of other controls that we have on the hierarchy. When other control measures are unable to reduce the hazardous exposure to safe levels, employers must provide PPE, no doubt, especially when the hazard or is not totally eliminated. Organizations cannot rely on PPE. I'm going to say it again. Relying on PPE alone to control hazards when there are other effective control measures is not HSC. That's not safety. So please, it's important that we understand it. And you can see what we have here. This is also the same pyramid, but I've turned it the other way around, whereby we now have PPE on top in place of elimination, and we have administrative controls followed by which should have been substitution. We don't have engineering controls. They will relegate substitution and elimination to the background. This is exactly what is happening in most industries. This is exactly what we as HSC professionals face in industries. And when this starts happening, the abnormal starts looking normal to us. We start taking things that we are not meant to actually accept. The organizations are expecting us to compromise.
Where's one?
You know, and you keep saying, and once you actually push back, you start getting things like you're not supporting the business. I will not push it for the same goal. It's not from there that they pay your salary. These are the things I've had in the early years of my career. But I think I was lucky enough to be able to stand my ground on some issues. And I'm not saying you have to be too rigid, because sometimes standing your ground is taken as being too rigid. You know, there are two different things actually. Like I mentioned, the aim of everything we do in HSC is to prevent injuries. That's the goal. So if I'm providing, if I'm giving a particular solution is not acceptable to them, there's always a way around. But we must ensure that injuries does not occur. You know, PPE can be effective. So are we saying that we should not get PPE? I'm not saying we should not get PPEs. PPE can be effective, but only when workers use it correctly and consistently, which is where the job is. This includes while other controls are under development. Okay, so if you are still trying to put up other controls, that's why I said, okay, fine, this is what we are meant to do, but okay, because the business is saying there's no money to actually do this now. Okay, let's do this now. Let's have a timeline to get this main thing done. Okay, in the course of that, when we are trying to fix this, this is what will be in place. These are the controls that we will push and enforce on the shop floor. So these are the kind of discussions that we need to have, but there must be, you know, a level of commitment from the management. And not everything thrown at HSC professionals needs to be absorbed, because that will lead to compromise. And before you know it, the standards actually watered down. And once the standards are watered down, as an HSC person, you have lost your control. For you to start to get it back again, it's going to be very, very difficult. When other controls cannot sufficiently reduce the hazardous exposure, when PPE is the only control option available after all other controls have been exhausted, like I mentioned, you know, we need to go through that hierarchy. We must ensure that, okay, fine, can it be eliminated? Can it be substituted? Can we have some engineering options? You know, if that's okay, can we do the administrative controls and PPEs? So we must ensure that we exhaust every other options before we jump to PPE. So PPE is at the bottom of the hierarchy of controls because it's effectively letting the hazard exist in the workplace. So sometimes we feel that once we give people PPE, that's the end, we have protected them. The hazard is still there. I have two examples here. You know, for example, in a place where there are chemical hazardous chemical fumes. So giving the guys a face mask to wear does not eliminate the hazard, does not take away the hazard away. You know, you're exposing the person, so the hazard, and you are exposing the person, so the hazard, and you are wrapping them up in the same way to protect them from that hazard. For example, in the case of a respirator, we are releasing the chemical. The chemical is there. As that chemical is being released, then we are putting a barrier on the person as opposed to controlling the hazard at source. So don't say I've given them respirators and that is it. They should be fine. They are already protected. Yes, they are, but the hazard is still there. And also in the case of noise too, the noise is in the environment. You know, are you giving people earplugs? You know, one of the most difficult one of the most difficult things to do is to control people. The fact that you are giving somebody an earplug or giving a safety boot, yes, he's aware that there's noise there, but he might not use it consistently. Yeah, maybe when you are coming into the hall or it's working area, they put it back on. You know, they wear their goggles. Safety is coming. Then they have to wear their goggle. You know, those are some of the things that we see, you know, at the workplace. So I'll just read through this. He said, if it's noise, we are releasing the noise into the If it's noise, we are releasing the noise into the work environment and then putting a barrier on the person. And that relies on the person keeping that barrier in place for the whole time. For the whole time they're exposed to that hazard. It assumes that anyone that works in that workplace is going to have to put that protection on and maintain that protection while they're in that environment. Yes. So it is really not controlling at source. It is controlling at the person, which is tasking and never effective. So PPE usage or enforcement is never effective. You can only try, you can only put in effort, but it can never give us kind of result that we actually want. Now, how do we have a win-win situation? You know, especially when it comes to applying this hierarchy of controls and implementing it in the workplace. And I term this the red and the blue pill. So there are two ways about it. Because one thing we need to understand is this. As HSC, we're also part of the team. We are not external people. We're not from Evon or wherever. We're part of the team. So we need to see how we work closely with the team. Like I said, the aim, the goal is zero injuries. So I term this the red pill and the blue pill. The red pill is engaging management and enforce the need to exhaust the other controls before the PPE option. That's an approach. Create a business case to support your drive. One thing an HSE person we always need is your ability to convince management. Your ability to build a business case and be convincing, you know, about whatever you're actually trying to accomplish. And one of the other ways is that you need to identify leaders and influencers in the business. So in the course of my career, one of the things I used to do is to identify people who I can influence. I influence one person that knows that can influence another higher person. And it actually works. It actually worked for me. And I think it's something that we as HSE professionals too can also embrace. Be proactive and always check the weather. You know, it's very, very important that we need to be proactive in our approach. And we also need to know exactly when to shoot. This is very, very key for us. Then I have the blue pill. The blue pill is, you align with the management and focus on the PPE, however, create a robust PPE program. Like I already talked about what the PPE program should look like. Talk about suitability, talk about comfortability, availability, training. Then it will be acceptable. You know, sometimes as HSC people, we just want to push some things down the throat of people. This is safety boot. Well, safety boot. If you don't want safety boot, I'll send you out. I think we need to move away from that era. You know, into dialogues. Yes, the carrot and stick approach, you cannot totally remove that from the workplace. But we need to see that things are acceptable. And one of the ways to be acceptable is to consult with the employees. You know, it's for you to actually consult with the employees. So, in conclusion, I'm going to say this: all accidents are preventable. Zero injury or zero accident is not a myth. You know, I've had people say that, is it possible not to have accidents in the workplace? I can tell you it is very, very possible. It's all about applying the right controls after a proactive risk assessment. So the question you need to ask yourself is, how detailed or how robust is my risk assessment? And the controls, did I exhaust the hierarchy of controls? Management will always be management. HSE professionals must be all around and possess all the negotiation skills that ensures zero injury goals becomes a reality. You know, so that will be all from me. I don't know if we have any question.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Akinwale Omoni. That was a real safety enlightenment session. And I can say specifically that I've gained loads of knowledge. We should not only use a particular hierarchy, a particular level of control, and not use it in coherence or together with other controls. No control should stay on its own. Like, for example, because you use substitution, you believe that you should not use administrative engineering control, or you don't use PPE. Everything should be used together, and that is what makes the beauty of risk management, hazard control beautiful. Thank you so much for that section, and we really appreciate this wonderful session you're giving to us. So if you have questions, please briefly let us ask our questions. Let us ask our questions. Okay, Mr. Churchill, please, you can kindly unmute yourself briefly and ask your question. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Churchill.
Okay. Yeah, good evening, sir. I must say this is a very nice presentation. I've really gained a lot from your presentation, but I want to ask a question. Looking at Eric PD as a hierarchy of control also, how do we now look at discipline coming in here? Because I think we also need to talk about it and look at it to know how it's going to help us to also have an injury and incident-free workplace. That is one. Then two, I want to ask for a generator that has too much noise. Then from risk assessment, you discover that maintenance has not been done for a long time. So you decided to go for that. So where do you factor it in now as it concerns the hierarchy? Is it in engineering control or administrative control? So these are my two questions. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Thank you so much. So I will take the first one. You mentioned about discipline. So is discipline in the workplace, you cannot totally take it out. Discipline, it's you must be ready to. That's why it's very, very good. We actually call it consequence management, whereby people understand that if I violate this rule, you know, this is where this is what is actually applicable. You know, this is the punishment for violating this particular rule in the workplace. And then, of course, use the first offender, second offender, and things like that. You know, at least the organization that I've worked, that is what we actually implemented. So, and we can put that as part of administrative controls too. You know, because once people understand, okay, fine, we have this guide from the admin or from the management that states this, that this is what we do, and this is the consequence for not complying to it. It forms part of your administrative controls. That is one. Then the second one about maintenance. So there are so many things that could be done. You know, so your question is that where do you classify maintenance now?
Yes, under which control, under which of the hierarchy will it fall into? Is it engineering or administrative control? That's the question.
So I think it fits in more into administrative controls. You know.
Yes.
Yes. Hello, Wali, you want to say something?
No, I said yeah. I said exactly. That's what I'm saying.
You know, so it fits in more into the administrative controls, because maintenance itself is part of management, it's part of administration. You know, ensure that, okay, fine, this guy that's meant to be serviced every 6 months, you know, is serviced. This oil that needs to be drained at also time is drained. This thing that needs to be changed, this part is not changed. They all form part of the administrative controls.
Okay,
right.
Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Timothy, please, because of time. Please, can you
okay. Thank you, Mr. Liu. Thank you, Mr. Olaniyi. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. First, I want to commend you being real and realistic when it comes to HSE Nigeria. My question is you raised one of the issues that if a risk assessment is being done and without considering all the hierarchies that you faulted the risk assessment. My question is this: if what can be done is from administrative and PPE, do you think that thing is not applicable? Because I do help contractors to do a risk assessment, and what I believe that if you put a control that is not available, that risk assessment is not a good document. But if you put what you can afford to do a job, which will still protect an individual, that's my question, please.
Okay, so it doesn't make any sense if a particular control exists on paper, but it is on the shop floor or on the field itself, it is not visible. So it is not a matter of this has been identified as a control, but are we going to do it or not? You understand that? If you can be specific enough, you can give me an example. Maybe we can be more. Maybe it can be much easier. But I don't see any reason why something will be on paper, but it cannot be. It cannot happen physically. And that is not a risk assessment. Whatever is actually identified on the paper is something that must happen on the shop floor. So if I, for example, on paper, I'm seeing that you have a barricade for your area as part of your engineering controls, and I'm coming to your work area. I'm seeing just a sign that says workers here. I'm not seeing a barricade. Then, of course, I will filter that. So did I answer your question?
Thank you, sir. You answered it because no example is coming to my mind. I will have given you. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Oluwole, my boss, can you meet yourself, sir? Please, after this, after one or two more, might not take more questions because of time. So, Mr. Wale, please, over to you, sir.
Yes, good evening, Wale. Thank you very much for bringing Wale on board. Wale, you've done a wonderful job. You really nailed it. Well done.
Thank you so much.
I don't really have a question per se, but I want to contribute briefly based on the question that was asked. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that.
Please go on.
All right. Now, when it comes to control, hierarchy of control, especially discipline, discipline is truly an administrative control. But most importantly, from my own experience, I discovered that the discipline may not really be as effective, that's talking of stick now, as it is meant to be if there is no commitment. If there is no commitment and leadership, by example, leadership example, that's from the company itself now, that's from the organization. If there is no commitment from them, that's the safety now being driven from top down. Then, if there is no leadership, by example, whosoever is being disciplined, we just see it as, maybe they're just, it's being unfair, so on and so forth. But a very effective way is when there is leadership by example. For example, the area of PPE you mentioned, and the safety personnel, the project team, the operational team, when they are on their own PPE and they also comply with the existing controls and the additional controls, it will be easier for workers, especially construction workers. Their case is just monkey see, monkey do. So when they see that, this is my safety, this is my engineer, this is my supervisor, they are well kitted. I'm talking of especially mandatory PPE now. It will now be easier for enforcement of task-specific PPE. So that is just, so as we look at the area of discipline, we also look at area of leading by example as well. And that definitely goes to the members of operation team, and we are the safety personnel that we sell this to them.
And like Wale said, also try and influence them to ensure that they do what we want them to do without any, with minimal friction as it is. So that is what I quickly want to say. And then for the generator, though it's a maintenance, it depends on the generator. Some generators are not dampened in terms of to contain their noise exposure. So some are dampened, like those ones that they build barriers around it, and it is built just like the Meccano generator and some other ones. Some are open. So it depends on the generator. But basically, engineering control might be applicable if it is as an open generator. So I just want to add that as well. So it's a great one. And I thank you very much for the inverted hierarchy of control. Thank you. That's the reality we are facing. And I believe that will change with time as safety gain more ground. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Wale. Thank you, sir. That is my boss, my mentor. So now, next person, Mr. Christopher Inyang. Please, quickly, sir, quickly. Kindly unmute and ask your question, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. Just a contribution, not a question. One, I want to say that I want to commend the presenter. For one, engineering control, it's also important for us to get management commitment, especially from the technical aspect, because one thing I've also seen when it comes to engineering control is the fact that most of the time, because of production targets, when equipment have problem or issues with the barrier, they are bypassed. And when they are bypassed, it makes even the worker around that equipment even more at risk, because at the back of his mind, he assumes that there is a barrier. So it's possible for the person to forget at times that that barrier has been bypassed. So that is very important. And then secondly, with respect to the question the last person asked, the person that asked the last question, when it comes to engineering control or other controls, you can have your risk assessment template to have different hierarchy of controls included in them. So what it means is that if PP and administrative control is what is available at that point in time, you put it there. Then you now put what you intend to do in terms of engineering control, which will also further reduce your residual risk. So what it means is that at the end of the day, your residual risk will not really come down the way it is supposed to come until that engineering control is finally implemented. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you so much for that contribution. I think that actually nails it.
All right, thank you so much. Then Mr. Job Beredi, please, that person, please kindly unmute yourself. Mr. John Beredi, are you there? Okay, all right. Please, we can't hear you, please. So while we wait for Mr. John, we have a couple of questions on the comment section. What can the HSE team do differently for management to realize they are actually in support of the business? That is, what can the HSE team do to make the management to realize that what they are doing is in support of the business? Over to you, sir. Mr. Money.
So I think the approach matters a lot. You know, gone are the days that I remember then when we started HSE some years back. We always quick to stop the line, stop job. Yes, stop job is fine. Nobody, of course, if you feel that there's someone at the line of fire, of course you have to stop work. But you know, it's very, very important that you need to think of solutions. Don't tell someone something is wrong and you don't actually have the solution for that problem. Just stop work and get out. You know, so we need to move away from that. Once you're always on the side of stop work and get out, or stop work and move away, move from site, you understand? And you're not providing solutions to, okay, fine, this is what you have done that is wrong. And that's also our emotional intelligence also comes in. You know, this is what has done, this is what we need to do. So there should be a dialogue. You need to feel people's pulse. You need to move away from the the policeman's safety that used to happen years back. Okay, I stop where everybody get out. Fix their permit to work. Get out, move from site. You know, there should be dialogue. There should be consultation. There should be, you know, it should be a two-way communication. You know, so that you send a signal to. So even at the end of the day, you have to stop work. Someone know that, okay, this is why you are stopping work, and this is what that needs to be done for work to actually start. You understand? So that kind of dialogue will actually show the management that at least you are actually on their side and not against what everybody else is doing.
All right, thank you, sir. So we have another one. What should be done when you are confronted with resistance to implement engineering control on a perceived hazard? When you are confronted with resistance that you are being prevented to implement engineering control.
Okay, so as an HSE person, thank you, Ali. As an HSE person, you should be used to getting resistance. You know, because your perception of risks is different from the other person. Maybe the engineering team, for example, the maintenance team. The way you are seeing things may be totally different. You are an HSE person, very better knowledge. They are seeing a pool of water on the floor, but you are seeing somebody that has hit his head on the floor already. So your risk perspective is different totally. So you should expect resistance. You know, that is where, you know, relationship comes in. Is it the workplace for you to actually be able to leave your mark when it comes to HSE implementation? You need to build relationships. You need to be able to identify people, you know, that has to be on your side, especially if you're not in top management. You know, I grew from being a safety officer to a safety manager, you know, and of course to senior management. But I know that it is not easy as a safety officer to see some things. Even as a safety manager, some things that you will say, depending on the organization. Some organizations put so much importance to what the safety manager says. And the last place I worked, not the last place I worked, but when I was working in the bureau, if I tell my plant manager that we need to shut down this bureau now, and everybody this, and I can explain to him, he will shut it down immediately. He won't even ask questions. What is? We just tell everybody, please shut down. What is it? We have to shut down this because of this and this and this and this. You understand? So those are kind of relationship that you need to, and you need to build a reputation also. People need to understand that when you are talking from the angle of knowledge, not of just emotions. You know, you should be able to present your case with facts. That okay, this is why we are doing this, and this is what needs to be done. Bring solutions to the table. Don't just be about the problem. This is bad. This is wrong. So what do we do? These guys don't know. You are the one that is the professional here. Bring the solution to table and let them understand. Okay, fine. Even if we cannot do this one, it may be on long term. What's the short term ones that we can do? And people will surely listen to you. But you should not be scared of resistance anyway.
All right, thank you very much, sir. So last person, Hakim Mukhtar, please can you unmute? Hakim Mukhtar.
Yeah, good evening, sir, Mr. Akinwale. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. So I am not really asking a question, but I just want to add to what you said earlier, sir. And I think another way of getting the HSE team to appreciate, I said the management to appreciate what the HSE team is doing is the use of cost benefit analysis. Because, you know,
Yes.
majorly management, they always say like the HSE department is more of like revenue loss, like you just asking them, pay this, do this, do that, do this, do this. But when they start understanding the cost benefit analysis, that all those steps you are taking, what are the benefits it is bringing to the business? What can it do? What can it save the business in terms of revenue loss? And what advantages is it bringing to the business in terms of reputation? So I believe with that is to even make it more easy for the management to value safety more aside the relationship. Because if you create they don't know the benefits, they are not of what we are bringing on board as a control measure, then analysis can be another way of ensuring. Thank you, sir.
All right, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Kim.
All right, thank you so much. So in addition to that, I think that is where knowledge and competency also comes in, because we can't give what you don't have. There was a time we did a training on safety, a tool to project productivity and quality deliverable. Safety, a tool to project productivity and quality deliverable. How does safety affect the procurement department? How does safety affect the cost management department? How does safety affect the quality department? How does safety affect every other department in every organization? So when professionals have high level competency level, understanding the business aspect of safety, how does safety improve productivity in the workplace? How does ensuring safety or lack of safety can lead to an organization losing workers, productive workers, and at the end of the day, it will affect their business. So understanding the business side of safety, like Mr. Money and Akim rightly said, is a very important aspect that we also need to learn. Maybe if you want to know more about that, you can go to our YouTube channel. You scroll down, you see the topic. I think I've done the topic twice. So you can go down, scroll down, you see project safety, a tool to project productivity and quality deliverable. So if you want to have that confidence, know what to say, how to say it, how to present it, how to present yourself in naira and kobo, how to present yourself in quality standard, that particular training is actually for you. So you can go to the channel and scroll down, you will see those topics there. Thank you very much, Mr. Omoni, my namesake, even though my name is Adeni. At least we both have Ni at the back of our name. Thank you, Mr. Ni, for this wonderful session.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate. Thank you, all my leaders on the call. I can see lots of leaders on the call who have even left. I can see Mr. Adefela Arofela. He has been on the call. I can see Mrs. Teresa Olayinka. I can see so many. Mr. Anthony always on the call. Mr. My leader, my boss who trained me on safety. I will never forget him, Mr. Oluwole Ayanfe Oluwa. I can see Mr. Bakareti Ola Azubike Oba, Mr. Aziz always present, and so many leaders, Mr. Timitayo Williams, so many leaders. I can't keep mentioning names from different parts, from Italy. I can see one of who joined today from Mexico. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your energy. Mr. Sunday Odibo, always present. Mr. Sony Varagasi, I think that is from India also, always present. Okay, I can see Wambete from Uganda. All people, everyone, we appreciate you. Next week will be a very important topic. Next week will be guiding us towards our plan for next year. What I mean is what we're going to discuss next week will be a focus on what our plan should be and how should we analyze our activities. So if you are just resuming a particular workplace, what are those things you need to look out for? I don't want to disclose the topic, and I hope that you all will join us again next week Sunday on another wonderful episode of Statement to Aliola. The event is live on YouTube. So after the event, it's already automatically available on YouTube. You can share it and watch it again and share it to people to watch and learn together. Also remember that we have a pre-recorded version of our 3 days technical city training course. If not for time, I can see Mrs. Teresa Olayinka, Mama, she attended our first version, our first section, and I'm very sure that she really enjoyed the training. So the recorded version is available at a very much discount price. If you are interested, you can chat me up on WhatsApp. Most of us, we know my contact. Chat us up on WhatsApp so that you can benefit from this great discount. We'll be talking about accident investigation, risk management techniques, geometry analysis, safety data analysis, and so many topics concerning those 3 days technical safety training course. So if you're interested, please let me know. Till then, I would love to see you all on Sunday on another beautiful safety enlightenment series with Walila. Thank you and God bless you. Remember, this is proudly sponsored by Further Safety Consult for all your training needs in your organization, best trainings, and safety consultancy services. Thank you and God bless you. Bye-bye.